Everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies?
Leave the gun. Technique and only.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The 2-1 pitch. There's a fly ball hit out to left. Waiting is Jones. The Mets are the world champions. Gary Koosman being mobbed. Look at this scene.
There we go. This is Douglas Viviani on Everything Old is New Again. I'm sans the usual co-host, my amazing David Cohen. He's not here today, but that's okay, because I have a special guest that will serve as a more than capable replacement or substitute, let's say, for the day. Ron Swoboda played right field for the Mets in 65 through 70, the Montreal Expos 71, and the Yankees, believe it or not, in 71 through 73. Since his playing days, has been television sportscaster in New York City, Milwaukee, and New Orleans, where he now provides color commentary for telecasts for the AAA team for the Miami Marlins, their affiliate club. Certainly, he's remembered for the amazing catch he made in the fourth game of the '69 World Series, and of course, becoming a world champion that year. But something tells me that you're going to remember him for the amazing book he's just published. The name of the book is Here's the Catch, a memoir of the Miracle Mets and more, which takes you behind the scenes of the 69 Mets and much more. I'm telling you, you're going to feel like you're on the team when you read this book. Welcome to Everything Old is New Again, Mr. Ron Swoboda.
I am so happy to have a chance to talk about this with you and to go back to the good old days, you know. Just turned 75 years old, just celebrated 50 years since 1969, and just spent a big weekend a couple of weekends ago in New York, and so it's all been good.
And I do want to talk about all of that. May I ask, what is your birth date? Because mine is July 11th. Are we close?
I am, we're good. I'm June 30, 1944.
Okay, now is that a Cancer, or are you just under the...
I am a Cancer. I'm not terribly involved in,
I know nothing about it, yes.
That whole thing. But
we have something in common, let's put it that way.
Zodiac and all of that,
Just trying to find a commonality, if you will, from some kid that was growing up in Melville, Long Island, watching
there's something to it. There is something to being a Cancer or being a Gemini. There does seem to be something there, and I'm not sure if you can explain it with the planets or what, but
there are certain traits, right, here and there.
Yes.
But
there are, absolutely.
Other than that, having that in common, certainly I was a fan. I was born in 62, so I was a smidge young, but I do remember the 69 year and a fan of the Mets thereafter. And certainly that catch that you made is something that you live with. I'm so sure people ask you about all the time. We will talk about that, but I want to talk about lots of other things. First of which, I just want to play a short clip here of a young Ron Swoboda in the locker room after winning the World Series. Let's listen to this.
Ron Swoboda, was the last base hit the biggest one you ever got in your life?
Well, we've come so far so fast. I think nothing can really be said. You know it, Lindsay. You know it because it brought us here. It was only one of the things. There were so many things.
Ron, you got the magic glove back. You got it all back.
He can pick it. He can pick it.
Can he pick it?
Listen to that excitement. Does that bring back memories? I'm sure it does.
Well, Lindsey Nelson was one of the most amazing announcers. He was a guy that later on you found out that during World War II he was a correspondent and hung out with people like Ernest Hemingway over in France while all of that was going on, and he was one of those announcers who started when radio was all there was, and you could tell it in the way he talked baseball and the way he painted word pictures of the game. Later on, when I was doing television and you got to listen to Lindsey Nelson describe a game, he would have these nights when he painted these beautiful word pictures, and how cool that he was one of the announcers when we won the darn thing.
Yeah, and I learned much about baseball in my formative years, pulling the weeds in the backyard, listening to the radio, and listening to the ball games with Ralph Kiner, Bob Murphy, and Lindsey Nelson. Unfortunately, in some ways, you didn't get a chance to experience that, but it's okay because you were who we were listening them describe, if you will, and that was a real great part of my youth, and I remember that distinctly. I also remember, this might be a little side thing, but you remember those jackets he used to wear?
Yes. Well, Haywood Hale Bruin, and Lindsay made sure that the jacket made a statement every day.
And it brings me into a little bit, sort of like a Jackson Pollock painting. I want to make a little statement here, or read 2 sentences from your book, Here's the Catch, to get us rolling. I think this really sets the tone, to me, for the way that you have written this book, which is great. So let me just read this real quick. I'll try to do the best I can with reading it with emotion and all that. But with fans, they're in constant motion. I often felt like I was staring into an ebbing, flowing Jackson Pollock painting, amping up my indecisiveness, which is my fatal flaw, to an almost Shakespearean dimension. That's just a sample of the type of wordplay that you use in this book, and I think it's terrific because it really makes it all come alive in a nice, very expressive way. Well, how did you come up with some of these expressions and the way that you've written this book? It's so literary in style.
Well, I do. I read a fair amount of pretty good literature. I've always read well. I wrote for years as a sportscaster. You write your own stuff, and you know, obviously, when you have time to write a book, you want to make some literary allusions that are apropos, and I felt like I needed to describe the background that you looked into at Shea Stadium because it stood so tall that most fly balls never came out of the stands, and the stands were mercuric. They were changing. And, you know, Jackson Pollock is one of those painters from the 50s that you may not know what he was trying to say, but when you look at one of those drizzled Jackson Pollock paintings, you look into it, you may not know what's going on, but something's going on.
Well, you sure did. You sure remembered. But looking into that, it's the way you pictured it so great because, you know, you play Little League or what have you, and whatever it might be as a baseball player, just in your youth, you could play the outfield and look and kind of imagine what you were thinking, but and seeing, but amplified to the nth degree with all these people in the stands, and this guy's wearing the white shirt, this one's wearing the yellow one, and whatever. And
they're moving around.
Right.
You know, they're not sitting still. And yeah, you know, people who came into Shea Stadium back then, outfielders especially, had trouble. You know, you would see on tough balls, they didn't get good reads. And you saw the background is the only thing that I think was causing the trouble. Just like when you went to the Astrodome the first time and you looked up and you realized that every fly ball is going to get up there in the structure somewhere and make it a lot harder to follow the ball.
Right, and talking about that affects the way you can play defense, or in other words, catch the ball. And there's a great quote in the book, Casey Stengel. I'm not going to quote forever, but I just wanted to use these 2 quotes to start us off. Casey Stengel says about you early in the day in '65, you had amazing strength, amazing power. He can grind the dust out of a bat. He will be great, super, even wonderful. Now, if he can only learn to catch a fly ball. How prophetic was that? I mean, apparently you learned how to catch a fly ball thereafter, right?
Well, you know, I always listened to Casey Stengel. I was privileged to be around one of the true living legends, and he was my manager the first half of 1965. And yeah, I probably drove him crazy in the outfield before I learned how to play it a little bit.
But he was not a goof like sometimes people just look at those old Met clippings or what we just say on YouTube. He certainly, you know, he was a little older when he was coaching you, managing yourself, but certainly he had gone through all those Yankee years and those championships and so forth. Maybe just speak a smidge, because you do talk about in the book how, you know, he may not have liked your question, so he kind of dodged it a little bit with his fun, but behind the scenes, he knew what he was talking about, huh?
Yeah, there was times you'd hear him, you know, talking, and if he saw you listening, the thing would turn into kind of a parable, you know. The story inside the story would be a situation from, who knows, 50 years ago that came up in a game when he was managing. He could go back a half a century easily and tie it into something that was going on right now. And Casey knew from the get-go that his job as a Met manager with those terrible teams that were going to lose at least 100 games, his job was to try to delight the fans and entertain the writers and give them something to talk about besides turning on the fact that the team is so terrible.
Right, he had certainly had the personality and the ability to do that, that's for sure.
I thought so.
No doubt. We'll be back right here, right now, on Everything Old is New Again to explore and enjoy the book. Here's the Catch, a memoir of the Miracle Mets with Ron Swoboda. We'll be back right after this on Everything Old is New Again.
Meet the Mets. You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Mets are amazing, 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 amazing. They're just finding out now that it's just October, and they found out now around the United States and all the patrons of New York City and Shea Stadium. They are amazing. They'll be amazing, amazing, amazing.
Hi, this is Art Shamsky from the 1969 Mets, and you're listening to Everything Old is New Again.
A little self-promotion there. I had to put that on there because we're here with Ron Swoboda, who was the teammate of and shared right field with Art Shamsky in '69. And, well, I'll tell you, you really made an impression because I just love that team, but I also have kind of looked at these stats, and when the platoon was instituted with yourself and Art Shamsky by Gil Hodges, I get the sense in the book, and who would want that to happen, but as a result, you know, you got like 100 RBIs between the two of you, I think somewhere around 24 home runs, so it seemed to work at least for that year. What'd you think about that move that he had the platoon?
Well, you know, Sham and I were great friends, and we realized that the platoon was cut and dried in Gil Hodges' mind, and it was working. Last couple of months of the season, I knew if there was a right-handed pitcher out there, Artie was going to be the hitter, and if he was a left-hander starting, I got the shot. And, you know, it's ironic, I just talked to Art Shamsky tonight, living here in New Orleans. We're sitting here with Category 1 Hurricane Barry off the coast. We're waiting to see how much water he's going to drop on the city of New Orleans, and Artie called me up to see how we were doing. So he was a guy that, you know, he hit 300 also. Right. I did not, but Artie was a good hitter, and, you know, I felt like Hodges had the right formula, and, you know, nobody wanted to be platoon, but you couldn't argue with the decisions that Gil Hodges made. I went back when I wrote this book and looked up all the play-by-play sheets from 1969, and you saw the decisions that Gil made, when he made them, why he made them, and how often he was right on the mark. And, you know, I mean, I knew without doing that Hodges had one of the most adroit baseball minds I ever saw, and I played for, you know, Gene Mock, who was supposedly a genius. Hodges had a way of resolving some pretty creative managing in ways that you understood perfectly.
Right, and he was a gentleman that seemed to be a little bit more of a disciplinarian, a strict kind of a gentleman. He was in the military and didn't, you know, you just say in the book, you're someone that wasn't too attuned to listening to what everyone else is telling you what to do, if you will, or authority. And you had knocked heads here and there with him, and then it seems like you say you regretted it a bit by botching the relationship with Hodges. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did. I chafe under too much authority, and I don't know why. I don't know why. If I think I've got a way of doing it and it's working for me, and I want to go my own route, I want to go my own route. And Gil's way was the way it was going to be, and there were just a couple of times that, you know, it grated on me, and that's on me. I think my immaturity or just the way I was, and I felt like if you boiled it all down, all Gil wanted you to do was act like a grown-up up and make yourself as good a baseball player as you could and help the Mets win ball games. And, I could do some of that some of the time, but I couldn't do all of it all of the time. And I annoyed him in ways that, if I'd have just shut up and played ball and left it at that, we would have gotten along a lot better. And that all goes on me because I think Hodges was one of the bright ones, and it should be in the Hall of Fame if the process works the way it should.
Right. I mean, the other thing is when we're young, we do have, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't mean to be say that everyone is like this, but I had a bit of an ego, and you sort of feel you have your own way to do things, and you're not going to listen to anybody else. But as you grow older, you realize the other person has a point of view, and maybe I should at least listen to what they have to say, and show you. I would suggest that this book shows how you've learned that lesson, and we can all grow through our experiences in life. That's for sure.
Well, you try to, and I think that's the thing I try to make as clear as I can. I'm just another guy who's had a bunch of opportunities, and even every man or every ordinary players are going to have great moments because you're playing a game that gives you an opportunity to do something spectacular every once in a while, and when it happens, you're as good. I played games against Willie Mays and Willie McCovey, and we won some of those games, and it wasn't always because of me, but you got to compete against Hall of Fame athletes and come out on the winning side. So there was room in baseball for what we call just guys, average players, and that's what I was.
Right. Okay. And well, you were more than average to the fan in '69 and some other seasons, that's for sure. But I acknowledge and appreciate that statement. I would say, well, let's just listen to a smidge of a clip here. If you remember the '62 team, the first game. I just want to play a smidge of this just to see what the lineup was like.
Well, hi there, everybody. This is Bob Murphy welcoming you to the first regular season game in the history of the New York Mets. Manager Casey Stengel will have Richie Ashburn in center field leading off. Gil Hodges playing first base, batting sixth. Don Zimmer will be at third base, batting seventh.
Okay, I mean, just played that because based right there, of course, you didn't play on that team, but it had an effect upon you in that. Stengel was a manager. Hodges.
God, I knew all those people.
Sure, Hodges later on. Exactly. Trying to drag the audience along with us.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And Bob Murphy, who was one of the best.
Yes, and Don Zimmer managed. So my question there is this name of just three managers right there. The managers of the 70s and the 60s, even the 80s, seemed to have a bit more influence than today. Of course, the computer and all this was not part of it.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And the book wasn't such a thing. And you're saying that Gil Hodges and certainly Stengel had this vibe, this ability to manage people and make the right decisions in game. Do you feel that the manager now has had, unfortunately, the rug pulled out from under them by management a little bit there, and these general managers want to have a little more of a say, it seems, and they don't let these managers do all that they could do with the teams, and therefore the managing position is just kind of diluted now?
Well, I think what you're saying is true in the sense that not just the general manager, but the analytics guy. Mm-hmm. It's more, a manager is more like a CEO or something. He's got to take some input from here and there, and his decisions sometimes are being made through analytics in a way that takes what I hope is. Analytics aren't irrelevant today, even though there's so much more of what a manager has to deal with. They're relevant, but I think gut has a lot to do with it too, and I think when I say gut, Hodges was analytics for us in 1969. If you were on the team, it's because he wanted you on the team, and if you played, it's because he wanted you to play, and if you bunted in this situation, it's because that's what Gil wanted to do. He was analytics for us.
Right.
But I think that also what they could learn today, and hopefully don't lose, is that when a guy is hot, it skews the percentages in a positive way. And when you're not hot, it skews percentages in a negative way. And that would be the thing with Gil. When you were hot, it changed the way he handled you and the opportunities he gave you. He let me hit in Game 5 with the winning run on base, and I drove it in. And because I was hot, I was making good contact in the last couple of games, and Gil left the bat in my hand when he could have called Art Shamsky up there to pinch it.
Yeah, also, it takes some of the personality away from the teams, and for the fans stand. Well, you know, when I was growing up, when you were playing, these managers, I don't know, Earl Weaver, Billy Martin, they had influence beyond the screen. Like, you, as a fan, would enjoy watching these managers because they were an extra element of the team, an extra piece of the personality. Or you felt like if you had this manager, now you're a running team. Or you had this other manager who's going to leave the pitchers in longer. Whatever it might be, the managers had their own personality. And as a fan, you were able to grab onto that, and it's an extra thing to grab your attention. Now you're taking that out from under us, and in theory, these managers are more just kind of, like you say, CEOs, and the personality is no longer there. You've just eliminated a piece of the puzzle as to why people love baseball, I think.
Yeah, I do think you use the word dilute his authority. You certainly are doing that now because his decisions are coming from a couple of different sources, and look, I do AAA baseball here in New Orleans. We're the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins, and, when you manage at the AAA level, your lineup comes down the fax machine into you, and you don't make that lineup, and you manage the game. If you coach third base, you make the calls at third base, but the organization sends you the lineup. And
also maybe the player in some way, some player that doesn't have maybe has a discipline issue or what have you, he doesn't think that the manager's going to be able to put you lower in the lineup because he comes home late, doesn't follow curfew, whatever it might be. So you may lose a little bit of authority too in the dugout.
Yeah, I think you got to have a different relationship. I think today's player is different in that regard, and they know what's going on because of social media and all of the other forces at work in professional sports and business today. I mean, people are out there and get their opinions out there. You're managing a bunch of guys who all have, their devices, and they're all doing Twitter, and they're all doing Facebook, and they're all doing Instagram. So it is a whole different world, Doug, as you know, and I think today you just have to deal with that and understand that change comes, and you have to adapt.
Right, and we're going to adapt to a commercial break right here and go on right back with a great book that Art Shamsky would love, and he was on our show previously and mentioned how he had a great time with you, with Bud Harrelson, Jerry Kuzman, and visiting Tom Seaver. We'll talk about that a little bit. But here's the catch. Ron Swoboda, a memoir of the Miracle Mets and more. You got to check this out. Brooks Robinson himself says, I really believe the ball I hit would have changed everything. If Swoboda had missed it, it's a triple and maybe 2-run score. But he made a hell of a play, and he's written a hell of a book. How about that? Here's the catch. Come on back. Everything old is new again.
Oh, the butcher and the baker and the...
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again, with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Breaking pitches hit in the air down the left field line. Buford is racing over, and he can't get it. He short-hopped it. Jones is coming home. There'll be no play at the plate. He scores, and Swoboda goes to second on the throw. The Mets are leading by a score of 4-3. Ron Swoboda.
There we go. Ron Swoboda's double in Game 5 of the '69 World Series. I think we kind of just alluded to that in the last section, wherein we were saying the Gil Hodges allowed you to. I think that was the at-bat you're talking about. Allowed you to bat.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, he let me hit, but remember, the first play of the ball game of game number 1 in that World Series was a fly ball that I let get over my head from Don Buford. That I believe to this day, that I believe then, and I believe now, I should have caught the ball. I did not. We lose game 1, and I hit the ball down the left field line that I think if I'm playing left field, I catch that ball. Don Buford, who was not the most graceful of outfielders and didn't get good jumps on the ball, he doesn't get to the ball I hit, and I end up with the game-winning RBI. But yeah, to repeat, Gil Hodges let me hit because I was hot, and that changed the dynamics in his mind.
And that's just a little evidence that there's more to life than just the catch. However, the book to read is Here's the Catch. I don't know if that worked or not, but I'll give it a shot. Ron Swoboda's memoir of the Miracle Mets and more, and that's who we're talking to here and having a great time sharing some
well,
bit of
you know,
history.
Doug, my wife came up with that name. We were just talking about, the book. We knew it would be loosely organized around that play and include a lot of other things. So she said, hey, how about Here's the Catch? And I went, you just nailed it, babe.
That's perfect. It's great to have a partner in life that actually, adds to things other than to say, please take the garbage out.
Very lucky in that regard.
Yes, absolutely. Great for you. Good for you. And certainly partners on the field are just as important, at least on a baseball sense here. And, I just want to talk a smidge because we had Art Shamsky on the show a few weeks back, and he recently took a road trip with you to visit Tom Seaver in California with Bud Harrelson, Jerry Koosman, and he wrote a book about that. And we certainly enjoyed that visit, but we didn't get a sense entirely because you don't have all the time in the world. Maybe a little perspective here on how Tom was during that visit, and certainly we then can get into talking about the anniversary weekend. But it's the 50th anniversary, of course, of the successful championship season, and on top of that, you fellas, the four of you, brought a little of the reunion back to Tom, who we know is suffering a little bit from Lyme disease there. So how was that reunion?
Yeah, it was wonderful. Artie got us all out there to do research for his book, and Tommy, this is the middle of last year, and Tom was having a good day. It was a time where he said, I have some good days and some bad days. This was a good day, and Tom was all there, and we knew that subsequent to that, things were not going to get better. Right. There is dementia associated with his exacerbated by this Lyme disease, and it's reached the point where Tom could not be a part of the reunion we had a couple of weeks ago in Citi Field, and there wasn't a more conspicuous absence than Tom Seaver, who was the franchise.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be at the ceremony when the Mets renamed the street out by the side of Citi Field, 41 Seaver Way, and it was pretty amazing to be there. And his daughter Sarah gave a great speech and in his stead, and I was so glad to be a part of that. I can't wait till they put the statue up.
Now, what a great idea! Of course, the statue's long in coming, but thank goodness it's going to be there. The question, he was a fellow that played even in the day. How do I say this? My sister was younger than I, and she wasn't a baseball fan, but she even knew, Tom Seaver at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. He was especially in New York, a revered figure, of course.
Yes.
And how was he, though, in the dugout? I get a vibe that he was a very intellectual individual. He went to the museums and so forth at times, and drove a very fast car in Connecticut. I know that. he
had a Porsche that he drove. He was the first guy to get something exotic like that I saw. And, Seaver was a smart guy, interested in art, and he really, I have since become pretty good art fan myself. I do an awful lot of reading of, I hope, good literature, and Seaver was, a little more educated than me, and I think a sharper cookie in a lot of ways. But, you look at Tom, Tom, first 10 years of his professional career, his ERA averaged under 3, and he never missed a start.
Right. And went 8, 9 innings, of course. That's a whole other story.
That was he finished games. He went out there to finish games.
Right.
The game that I made the catch in, he went 10 innings in Game 4 of the World Series.
Yeah, it's just it's an amazing story. We'll get to a little more about pitching and so forth down the line. I just want to finish off a little bit about that celebration we were talking about. Tom Seaver's family was there. They stood up. It was about 6 or 7 people there, and
2 2 daughters and their kids, and boy, what a handsome lot they were, and it was great. We got to hang out a little bit with them. We were in the Plaza Athene Hotel down in 64th Street in Manhattan, off of Madison and between Madison and Park. It was pretty cool.
And in that celebration, you did have an opportunity to be introduced, take a car ride, or we'll call it a car ride around the stadium there.
Yeah.
And you were sitting with Cleon Jones, correct? In the stadium as they were introducing you.
In the old days, yeah, they put us in cars for the celebration,
right?
And we were each in a car by ourselves.
But I thought I saw you in being introduced and riding in the outfield on the way to on the field with Cleon Jones.
That was in a golf cart.
Right.
We had transferred out of the vehicles,
right.
But yeah, Cleon is. I just talked to Cleon yesterday on the phone. We speak a lot. I think as we all get older and we realize, look, time is getting short here. We've closed up the ranks an awful lot. Ed Kranepool, with his new kidney, and Cleon with the wonderful things he's doing for folks over in Mobile.
Right, and Cleon Jones is one of my favorites. I remember sending this is a personal thing, but what the heck, sending a little card out or a letter out to him, and maybe it was about 9 or 10, how much I enjoyed his playing for the Mets and so forth. Send me back a signed picture. I think I may have done that same for you, as a matter of fact. And so what was that like? I mean, it was not email, it wasn't, and it was very personable. You must have gotten a lot of mail, I should say, from people. And how did it work? Did you have publicists? Did you do it yourself? It must have been overwhelming, the support and the fans from New York in '69 and thereafter clamoring for your attention.
Yeah, we were I think so much in front of it. We did Little League dinners and Jewish men's club breakfasts on Sunday morning. I grew up a Catholic, and that's where I learned to eat lox and cream cheese on a bagel. And I used to joke, I had mine on Friday, way back when that was fish on Friday for the Catholics, and mine was lox and cream cheese on a bagel, and I learned that in New York. So, the multi-ethnic and internationalism of New York City was a thing that it's even more so today. But yeah, the experience of that, and I think as a player that we were in touch with our fans, and I'm proud of that, and wouldn't have had it any other way.
And that certainly it really built a loyalty as well. When you send a kid sends something out to a baseball player, and I get a picture of Art Shamsky or I don't know, Ron Swoboda, certainly Cleon Jones, and a lot of other. I got one from Bud Harrelson. What a great way to keep in touch with your fans, but also you built. Look at this, 50 years later, and I have you on the show. What a privilege, and I wouldn't be doing it if I maybe if I didn't get that autograph from you all those years ago. If that makes any sense.
Well, it does make sense, and how cool is that? Those kinds of connections in my life are the things that are important to me. There's no friends like old friends, and yeah, we were on this baseball team and a little harder to get to, but we weren't remote.
Right.
We were around, and we knew who we were playing in front of.
Absolutely, and going to have to take a hard break here for a commercial, but we'll be right back with Mr. Ron Swoboda, author of A Memoir of the Miracle Mets and more. Here's The Catch, again by Ron Swoboda, about the 1969 World Series, as well as the season leading up to that miracle catch. Brooks Robinson himself says, "I really believe the ball I hit would have changed everything. If Swoboda had missed it, it's a triple and maybe 2 more runs score." But he made a hell of a play. And he's written a hell of a book. It's exactly right. Brooks Robinson hits another one out of the ballpark with that review of the Ron Swoboda book. Get involved with Amazon.com. Order it now. You will not be disappointed. We'll be back right after this on Everything Old is New Again.
Meet the Mets. Meet the Mets.
This is Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Hi, this is Art Shamsky from the 1969 Mets, and you're listening to Everything Old is New Again.
And we're here with Ron Swoboda, yet another champion. Two of them played right field on the 1969 Mets. And speaking of that, being, playing and so forth, I just want to touch a little bit about today's game with respect to pitching. We talk about Seaver finishing games and Koosman finishing games, I'm sure. And today, again, talk about that word discount. The starting pitching is discounted a bit now, too. Where do you go with this? So do you think that we're looking at players are going to pitch one inning to start a game, and then another player coming in 3 or 4 that this seems to be doing now, and then more and more relief pitchers, and so you're looking at a scorecard and you're going to see 5 to 7 pitchers a game every game. Is that what we're going on this?
I don't think you can go quite that way with a pitching staff. You don't have the numbers to do that. But,
right.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Tampa Bay started a thing a couple years ago where they instead of a closer, they'd have an opener. And there are sometimes in your rotation when you might want to use a whole lot of guys. We call it down here in AAA where I do the games, we'll call it a bullpen game every once in a while, where you don't really have a starting guy. You need to get some work for these other arms, and you just run a bunch of bullpen guys out there, and sometimes it works just fine, especially if you can mix and match them in a way, according to who's coming up and how you think that pitcher will succeed. But yeah, it's changed. They're protecting arms. 100 pitches now gets towards the high water mark, and it's a guide like anything else. But I think in trying to protect them and further their career, it's more proscribed from the 6th inning on. You're going to have a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, a 9th inning guy. You remember when the Mets lost the World Series to Kansas City. If they were even or ahead of you, after 6 innings, you got a separate guy for the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and they were pretty confident you weren't going to score.
Right. So it's complicated, but I take a look at it and I see also the old theory that Nolan Ryan had a few years back when he was dealing with the Texas Rangers, and he was like, no, I want my pitches to go longer. And I think he's going...
He tried to do that,
right.
But that's not something you can decide to do it. But
right.
It is a long process to stretch guys out so that they can do that. And now I think you have a little bit of a psychological barrier. But, back then... as I mentioned, Seaver and Koosman, those guys, they expected to go 9 innings when they went out there. And when you went out to take them out, Hodges, fortunately, Hodges didn't get a lot of arguments about it, but, today, you see some pitchers who look like they're not too happy that the manager's making a move, and it might allude back to what you said. A manager's authority is a little more diluted, and your leadership in a clubhouse sometimes is other guys on the team who are veteran presences on that roster, and how they conduct themselves is important to overall team play.
Well, the other thing is also the players, even from, I would guess, from Little League, are no longer trained to go as long, so the arms aren't. They have to be protected because they aren't, what would you say, built up the tolerance and the ability to go these 9 innings or even 7 innings anymore, right? I mean,
well, and I think hitters are better too, and I think that's part of it. I think hitters are trained better now. I think it's obvious the second time around through the rotation, if a pitcher doesn't have his good stuff, he can get in trouble because hitters are smarter and will adjust more. And, don't forget, these guys get way more hitting coaching and batting practice now than they did back when we played. So I think in a lot of ways there's more good hitters, and they are smarter about the mechanics of hitting, and that the pitchers, who I think in a lot of ways are physically better themselves. It's not easier to play the game today than it was back when we played.
And
don't ever think it is.
No, definitely not. And certainly the thing is this: these batters are coming up, and they've got a whole litany behind them of material, whether it's video, whether it's statistics, whether it's the way this guy pitches and so forth. That Babe Ruth, let's say, never saw a video of anybody that he faced, and vice versa. So the education level, just standing up to the plate, knowing what to expect, has got to affect a lot of what's happening.
Yeah, they have a more solid image. Now, you can overdo information. When you go up to hit, you want to be careful that your conceptions aren't too, cut and dried, because you got to react. You got to go up there with good reactions, but I think you go up there with a plan now. More hitters go up who have a plan on what they're looking for early, what they're looking for early in this situation, what they're looking for later in the whole batting at bat.
But also the fan then loses another little sense of it, where you don't have the Tom Seaver, Steve Carlton, Bob Gibson going, and the personality on the mound. Now it's just another pitcher. But I guess you roll with that because you learn the other short term relievers, and it's just a different game. You just got to roll with it. Is what I'm trying to say.
Kind of. Kind of like buying sneakers now. You used to it might be 10, 12 different kind of sneakers you could buy. Now there's 100 and some. You go to buy breakfast cereal now. It used to be 10 or 12 different breakfast cereals. Now there's 120. You have to. I think that variety is part of our world, and I think that variety exists in the same way in baseball. You need and players moving from one team to another. That movement is something you have to adjust to. It's not just your team. There's going to be a lot of turnover and a lot of change, and that's our world today, is it not?
It is. I mean, take a look at radio itself. I mean, we've got these 250 podcasts out there every other day, and so that's why you need to be on your game, and you need to really bring to the table something like this book. Here's the Catch, a memoir of the Miracle Mets, and more. Ron Swoboda here on Everything Old is New Again, sharing some time, some of his valuable time, and we certainly appreciate that. There's more to life than baseball, though, too, and you do speak about that a little bit in the book as well, where the 68, 69 seasons and some other seasons, but those in particular where you took a trip to Vietnam, you were with Joe DiMaggio, apparently with Martha Ray, Joey Bishop. There was some interesting events that you had there that shaped you a little bit as a person too. I get a sense. Did that happen a little bit, or no? You met with the Green Berets and
yes. Think about it. What was going on in '68 and '69? The Martin Luther King assassination and Bobby Kennedy, in a time when the Vietnam War was raging, and we were losing more than 1,000 guys a month in KIAs in Vietnam, and God knows how many Vietnamese were dying in that struggle.
Right.
And the anti-war, and in sort of identity politics, there was a lot of money in the system. The war was feeding the economy. Good time to be young if you had a deferment.
Right.
And as we moved into 1969, Nixon's, Vietnamization and trying to extract us from that whole situation, and you had the man on the moon. You had Woodstock and this whole love generation. What do you mean? Do I love you? I love everybody. We went through that whole age of Aquarius thing as well.
Right. And then there were the Miracle Mets, who were part of that and sort of icing on the cake of this generation, or this, what would you say, the 60s decade, winning that World Series. Did you get a sense, I think you have a sense of what it meant to New York, but as you've gone through the years, do you get a sense of what it meant for the country, if anything, beyond New York, the winning of this complete underdog?
Yeah, I think, back then people rooted for underdogs. I'm not so sure that's the deal anymore, but we did root for the underdog back then, and with all of all of what was going on culturally in our system, I think we were a feel-good story that everybody could get their heads around. And I think as it became, the playoffs, first year of the playoffs, 1969, as we get out of the National League playoffs, beating the Atlanta Braves 3 straight, and then head for the World Series. I think that's something everybody got their heads around. Here's the Mets coming from where? From nowhere, and now they're playing for all the marbles, and maybe there's room here for every man and every person to live their dreams, and if you could certainly do it vicariously through the New York Mets.
What a great place to end, right here, right now, and everything old is new again, a memoir of the Miracle Mets and more. Here's The Catch by Ron Swoboda. We'll be back next week with Ron Swoboda to continue talking all things Mets, baseball, and more, and everything old is new again.
Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go?
Everything Old is New Again is sponsored by the law office of Douglas Viviani. Douglas Viviani has been providing quality legal service for over 26 years. We're a general practice firm and can handle any legal matter you may have for a reasonable fee. If you're involved in a car accident, starting a business, planning your estate, or need a criminal attorney, please call 631-681-1910 or email us at vivianilaw@aol.com for a free consultation. Get the justice you deserve. Contact the law office of Douglas Viviani at vivianilaw@aol.com.
You've been listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's pop culture entertainment talk show. Find us on the web at everythingoldisnewagain.biz. That's .biz.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.